Chapter 1711. After the reverend from Wenqin Temple left, Qin Wentian had no way to calm his heart. Who was Reverend Yuanfeng? Clearly, he was none other than Qin Yuanfeng. The reverend from Wenqin Temple said that his father, Qin Yuanfeng, had a connection with Wenqin Temple. In that case, there was no doubt that his father had once appeared in Azure Mystic before. Also, Wenqin Temple was willing to give up on the matter of the Evergreen Kingdom stealing the great Nirvana immortal art, and allowed Chongqing the Great to deliver it to him. The reason for all of this was actually because of his father. In the past, although Qin Wentian did suspect that the great Nirvana immortal art was extraordinary, he didn't connect it with his father. Wenqin Temple had a legacy that originated from ancient Azure Mystic. They should know the secrets of ancient Azure Mystic. Seems like if there was a chance he would have to make a trip there. Qin Wentian turned his gaze to Chongqing the Great as a puzzled expression appeared on his face. Upon seeing Qin Wentian's gaze, Chongqing the Great smiled. Qin Yuanfeng appeared in the immortal realms before, but his appearance was very brief, like a blooming night blooming cactus. However, his brilliance was still as dazzling as ever, but he was soon forgotten. I didn't expect him to have such a good relationship with Wenqin Temple. He should be your father, right? So father has long guessed it. Qin Wentian nodded. He didn't hide this from Chongqing the Great. Chongqing the Great's words didn't cause him to feel surprised. Qin Yuanfeng came here to hide from the world. He chose Azure Mystic because this place wouldn't attract the attention of the people from the supreme ancient immortal realms. But even so, his father wouldn't create too much of a commotion in the immortal realms. After all, although the supreme ancient immortal realms couldn't enter Azure Mystic, they still had spies there. Chongqing the Great didn't say anything. He wasn't that familiar with Qin Yuanfeng and wasn't clear about the details of this matter. The true mastermind behind all of this was the White Emperor. Back then, the person who came into contact with Wenqin Temple was also the White Emperor. He was always right. He had never been wrong. Just like how he predicted that Qin Wentian would change the fate of the Evergreen Kingdom. Ever since Qin Wentian appeared, the Evergreen Kingdom had been in turmoil. Palace Lord, this subordinate has something to report. Outside the Heaven Empyrean Palace, someone spoke. He didn't dare to use his immortal sense to probe inside. No one would dare to do so. However, as long as he spoke, Qin Wentian would naturally be able to hear it. Come in. Qin Wentian spoke. Suli walked in with a jade slip in his hand. Palace Lord, someone said that he wants to pass this to you. Qin Wentian waved his hand as the jade slip flew into it. His immortal sense entered it as sharpness gleamed in his eyes. He then turned his gaze towards a certain direction. His gaze was extremely cold. What happened? Chongqing the Great asked. Father, this is news from Hua Taishu. He wants to leave Azure Mystic and told me to seal the city of ancient emperors. Qin Wentian spoke. Seal the city of ancient emperors? Chongqing the Great's eyes gleamed with sharpness. The city of ancient emperors had always been a place where ancient emperors were born. Many experts would head there to temper themselves. After Qin Wentian returned, the immortal realms were continuously shaken and many geniuses from the city of ancient emperors came out. But even now, there were still many people cultivating in the city of ancient emperors. Also, this would continue to be the case in the future. Father, do you remember that there are Tao elements in the city of ancient emperors? However, the inheritors of the Tao elements have to fight against each other until the strongest expert emerges. Hua Taishu told me that the city of ancient emperors is a supreme treasure that connects the supreme ancient immortal realms to Azure Mystic. Even if the city of ancient emperors is sealed, some of the Tao elements would still be able to use the city of ancient emperors to spread their wills. This is extremely dangerous. Qin Wentian spoke. He understood that Hua Taishu's words were right. The city of ancient emperors had to be sealed or there would be future troubles. Qing'er had also received the inheritance of the Tao elements. Qin Wentian guessed that those powers from the upper world that had Tao elements might even be stronger than the lifelong realm. Since you already have a plan in your heart, just do it. Chongqing the Great naturally believed in Qin Wentian. Since he said that he wanted to seal the city of ancient emperors, in that case from now onwards, this city of ancient emperors which had always had an extremely important position in the immortal realms would most probably cease to exist. For the next period of time, I will guide the experts from the various powers in their cultivation, imparting some of my experiences. After that, I will make a trip to Wenxin Temple. Qin Wentian spoke. Chongqing the Great nodded lightly. On the second day, the various powers brought their people over. The majority of them were immortal emperors, and there were also transcendent-level immortal kings. Also, all of them were core characters of their respective powers. Qin Wentian started to preach about the Tao, imparting his cultivation experiences and bringing them to other places. He took out the treasured gems and allowed them to sense the energy within, helping them to gain insights. As the saying goes, it's hard to pass down the Tao. Everything depended on one's own comprehension. However, there was still some use to it as long as the person imparting the Tao was strong enough. Back then, when he preached about the Tao in the Tiandao Sacred Academy, many people were able to gain insights and undergo a transformation. At the same time when Qin Wentian was preaching about the Tao in Heaven Empyrean City, Ditian arrived at the chaotic surroundings of the City of Ancient Emperors. Back then he had to rely on the Black Dragon to enter the City of Ancient Emperors. But now, he had already surpassed the Immortal Emperor realm and was much stronger. He directly flew forward, sending his immortal sense into the surroundings. Within the boundless tempest, there seemed to be another world. In that world a supreme treasure could be seen, radiating a resplendent light. This was an illusory world, a universe within a palm. "Sir, who might you be?" A rumbling sound rang out as a terrifying black dragon appeared before Ditian. This was none other than the black dragon that guarded the City of Ancient Emperors. "The Heaven Empyrean has given the order to seal the City of Ancient Emperors," Ditian spoke. The black dragon roared, causing the entire sea region to tremble violently. Impudent! Does he know what the City of Ancient Emperors is? A treasure from the upper world? Right now the Heaven Empyrean is in control of Azure Mystic. He doesn't allow the City of Ancient Emperors to exist. Ditian's voice was cold. The black dragon's expression was extremely ugly to behold. Lightning crackled around him as the entire sea region went berserk. Lightning from the 9 heavens descended from the heavens, blasting towards Ditian. "You aren't a corporeal body. You are just a manifestation of your spirit body." Ditian calmly spoke. Boundless sealing power descended from the sky, gushing towards the black dragon. At the same time, a sealing light screen appeared, blocking the 9 heavens from the 9 heavens. "Lock!" Ditian waved his hands as countless sealing chains directly wrapped around the black dragon, locking him within. The black dragon roared in rage. "Do you know what you are doing? Shut up!" A chain directly slammed into the black dragon's face, causing a bloody scar to appear. This humiliation caused the black dragon to go crazy. This ant from Azure Mystic actually dared to offend him like this? Swishing sounds rang out unceasingly as the chain slammed into the black dragon's body. This caused the black dragon to roar in rage. "You will regret this. The Heaven Empyrean wants me to tell you this. You are very fortunate that you didn't have the foresight back then and didn't allow him to control the inheritance of the City of Ancient Emperors, allowing him to have today. In order to repay you, you shall be sealed here together with the City of Ancient Emperors." Ditian continued speaking. The terrifying chains pierced through the black dragon's body, directly destroying him. This black dragon wasn't his true body. His true body should still be in the City of Ancient Emperors. Stepping out, Qin Wentian continued deeper into the tempest, breaking through the layers of obstructions and arriving outside the city. He then spoke, "People in the City of Ancient Emperors, listen up. Everyone, immediately retreat from the City of Ancient Emperors. The Heaven Empyrean has given the order to seal the City of Ancient Emperors. If you still don't retreat after a day, you shall be sealed together with the City of Ancient Emperors." At this instant, the hearts of the experts in the City of Ancient Emperors pounded violently. They naturally weren't unfamiliar with the name of the Heaven Empyrean. Who didn't know that the Heaven Empyrean had unified the immortal realms? Even for those who had never left the City of Ancient Emperors before, they all knew about it. Because the name of the Heaven Empyrean had long spread to every corner of the immortal realms. It was the same in the City of Ancient Emperors as well. As long as one was powerful enough, they would definitely know about it. The Heaven Empyrean had given the order to seal the City of Ancient Emperors. How tyrannical were these words? Although they didn't understand, They still madly sped towards the exit point, preparing to use the teleportation arrays to leave this place. Hence, the teleportation arrays in the City of Ancient Emperors were activated unceasingly. The experts in the City of Ancient Emperors were all fleeing madly as waves of shock rocked their hearts. A day later, in this vast sea region, a supremely powerful sealing technique manifested, blotting out the sun, wanting to seal this entire space. The experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms could enter the City of Ancient Emperors. Naturally, it wasn't for no reason. This was because the City of Ancient Emperors was connected to the upper world. But as long as it was sealed, the connection between the City of Ancient Emperors and the upper world would naturally be severed. There was naturally no need to doubt Dtion's sealing abilities. When the entire space turned into a screen of sealing light, the entire sea region was like a gigantic sealing diagram. Boundless runic light shone from the sky, locking down the City of Ancient Emperors, completely enveloping it. After that, Dtion left the City of Ancient Emperors. In the sealed space, a roar of rage rang out, filled with humiliation and reluctance. Once, he had found the next protector of the City of Ancient Emperors, and was prepared to pass the inheritance to him. However, because of the arrival of the Tao element, the era had changed and he had to make a new choice. But never in his wildest dreams did he expect that when that person came here again, it was no longer about the inheritance. Instead, he directly ordered his subordinates to seal the City of Ancient Emperors. In fact, even Qin Wentian himself didn't come. What attitude was this? Right now, he was the master of the entire Azure Mystic Immortal Realms. Chapter 1712. After the passage of countless years, the Wenxin Temple now exuded a tranquil and peaceful aura. Within a treasured temple, the Reverend Tianxin of the Ascart Temple sat on a praying mat while Qin Wentian sat opposite him. Beside him, a novice monk around the age of 10 was busying himself, moving some jade slips and ancient scrolls into the space between the Reverend Tianxin and Qin Wentian. These were all ancient scrolls of the Ascart Temple that had been passed down for a long time. "Master, I've brought them all." The young novice monk pressed his palms together as he spoke to the Reverend. "Okay, Wuxin, you can leave now." Reverend Tianxin nodded to the young novice monk. The young novice monk then bowed to Qin Wentian. "Benefactor Qin, Wuxin bids his farewell." "Many thanks." Qin Wentian smiled as he nodded his head. The little novice monk then departed. "Reverend, this disciple of yours is truly impressive." Qin Wentian laughed. "Indeed, he has great wisdom." Reverend Tianxin nodded. His gaze landed on the ancient scrolls before him as he continued. "These are the only things left in our temple. Benefactor Qin, please take a look." "Many thanks, Reverend." Qin Wentian nodded. After that, he took the jade slips and ancient scrolls over. His immortal sense seeped into the jade slips and instantly, he obtained many pieces of information. After that, a sharp light flashed in the center of his brows. After that, he flipped through the ancient scrolls and instantly, many ancient characters were imprinted into his mind, transforming into motes of light. Qin Wentian flipped through the pages unceasingly as more and more ancient characters floated into his mind. Qin Wentian slowly flipped through the ancient scrolls. The interior of the temple was extremely quiet. There was no sound at all. Reverend Tianxin also didn't disturb him and closed his eyes to rest, like an old monk in meditation. After a long time, Qin Wentian finally finished reading. His eyes flashed with a resplendent light as his heart was unable to calm down for a long time. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath, doing his best to suppress the shock in his heart, calming himself down. He didn't expect that the records in the ancient records of the Ascart Temple would actually be so shocking. There was a high possibility that these ancient records were the only copies in Azure Mystic. He didn't expect that the 33 immortal realms all had their own boundless histories. The supreme ancient immortal realms evolved through countless years and became the strongest immortal realms. However, the lower worlds all had their own glory. The Azure Mystic immortal realms once also had a glorious history. The Azure Mystic today is actually not the ancient Azure Mystic. Qin Wentian mumbled, feeling somewhat shocked. "Grandmaster, do you know where ancient Azure Mystic is located?" Qin Wentian asked Reverend Tianxin. Ancient Azure Mystic didn't refer to the changes of the era. It was just that the current Azure Mystic was incomparably vast. It might just be a small corner of ancient Azure Mystic. I have no idea. However, the people of the supreme ancient immortal realms most probably came here because of this. I wonder if these characters who are at the Empyrean realm would be able to find the entrance to ancient Azure Mystic. Reverend Tianxin shook his head. Although Azure Mystic is vast, the Immortals, the myriad Devil Islands, the desolate 10,000 mountain range are all extremely vast. But even so, it is still much smaller when compared to the supreme ancient immortal realms. The size of a single world is already comparable to the current Azure Mystic or even surpasses it. In the past, I've never thought about this because I wouldn't think about it in this direction. Only now did I realize that the Azure Mystic immortal realms we know of is actually not ancient Azure Mystic. The world-ending war recorded in the ancient books. How terrifying was it exactly? Qin Wentian sighed in his heart. The jade slips in ancient books in the Wenqin Temple actually contained heaven-shaking secrets. There were some records regarding the Azure Mystic immortal realms. It said that their Wenqin Temple's inheritance originated from ancient Azure Mystic. However, because of that world-ending war, the entire world was annihilated, the lives of the people were plunged into misery and suffering. The entire Azure Mystic was razed to flat ground. If things were really like what was recorded in the ancient books, then the word world-ending wasn't an exaggeration at all. This was simply too terrifying. A world in the 33 immortal realms was destroyed. What level of war was this exactly? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was a world-ending war. After that, some survivors managed to escape from the world-ending war. However, the people of Azure Mystic were already destroyed. Their homeland was already buried. They actually couldn't find the Azure Mystic of the past anymore. In the ancient books, an ancestor of the Wenqin Temple used a single sentence to describe this change. When you wake up from a dream, the heavens have already changed. Most probably, the current Azure Mystic was developed by the survivors of that world-ending war. Most probably countless years had passed and it was basically impossible to verify. The history of the Wenqin Temple was so long that it caused the hearts of many to tremble. It could be said that it had grown up together with Azure Mystic until now. Maybe, this was also the reason why the Wenqin Temple insisted on only having a small number of their disciples enter the world. Their attitude was unyielding yet peaceful. They didn't want to compete, but they would never be bullied by others. They didn't compete because they knew of the existence of ancient Azure Mystic and the history of the world-ending war. In that case, what was there to compete for in Azure Mystic? Naturally, this was the transcendent nature of the Wenqin Temple's abbot. The people in the temple might not know of this period of history, and there might be people with different personalities appearing. But as long as the abbot didn't change, the will of the inheritance wouldn't change. They didn't want to be bullied by others because of their history. As the most ancient power in Azure Mystic, the Wenqin Temple naturally had its own pride. Also, sometimes the pride of the Wenqin Temple would cause people to feel fear in their hearts. They wouldn't bully others, but they would never be bullied by others either. Many powers in the immortal realms felt reverence in their hearts towards the Wenqin Temple. This was also because they didn't know how long the history of the Wenqin Temple was. If not, the reverence in their hearts would be even stronger. Reverend, who do you think the person who sealed Azure Mystic is? Qin Wentian asked again. How would I know? However, I'm afraid it has something to do with that existence who described the world-ending war in the ancient books. Reverend Tianxin was as calm as ever. But back then when he read about this period of history, great waves of shock rose up in his heart. I feel the same way as well. Qin Wentian nodded. In the ancient records, ancient Azure Mystic was once a unified power. The entire boundless Azure Mystic immortal realms had a Heaven Lord. This Heaven Lord was known as the Imperishable Heaven Lord in ancient times. The Imperishable Heaven Lord was the master of ancient Azure Mystic. This naturally wasn't something the Heaven Empyrean today could compare to. That was ancient Azure Mystic, one of the true 33 heavens. It was an incomparably tyrannical power. How powerful was a Heaven Lord? If he wasn't powerful, how could so many powers in the supreme ancient immortal realms allow the Imperishable Heaven Lord to rule the world? Now that Azure Mystic was sealed, Qin Wentian guessed that this had something to do with the Imperishable Heaven Lord. In addition, that world-ending war in the supreme ancient immortal realms was said to have happened because of the Imperishable Heaven Lord. When the heavenly deities descended, countless people directly prostrated themselves on the ground. Their might was unstoppable, capable of shaking the heavens. With a wave of their hands, the sun and moon lost their luster, mountains and rivers crumbled, the earth split apart, the seawater flowed in reverse, and lava from hell erupted from the earth's core. Everywhere they passed by, everything was destroyed. There were also heavenly deities summoning world-ending divine lightning, turning everything into ashes. Immortals and devils wept, emperors and emperors turned into skeletons. At this moment, the imperishable Heaven Lord appeared in the air, fighting against the heavenly deities in rage. At this moment, in the courtyard of the Heaven Empyrean Palace, beauties were as common as the clouds. Laughter filled the air, causing Fan Lu to be extremely jealous of Fan Lu. Wentian, now that you have a beauty in your arms, your senior sister is still single. Senior sister treated you so well in the past, but now that you are the Heaven Empyrean, what do you plan to do? With so many beauties surrounding him, Qin Wentian found it hard to endure. This was especially so for his senior sister Luo Huan. She had always been shooting her mouth off and would occasionally tease him. Senior sister, what can I do? Don't tell me you want me to introduce you guys to you? Qin Wentian bitterly smiled. Luo Huan giggled and winked at Qin Wentian. You can consider taking all of me as your senior sister. The beauties all started when they heard Luo Huan's words. Their laughter abruptly stopped as many people turned to Qin Wentian. This atmosphere was a little strange. It seemed like Luo Huan's words also represented the thoughts of others. Qin Wentian had a face filled with black lines. He sneakily glanced at Qing'er and Mo Qingqing at the side only to see Mo Qingqing smiling sweetly. Senior sister, if you had said this earlier, you would have gotten him to marry both of us a few days ago. Now that you have entered the Heaven Empyrean Palace, you would be even later than me and elder sister Qing'er. Wouldn't it be too unfair for senior sister? AI seems like I can only die alone. Luo Huan bitterly sighed. Qin Yao smiled. Don't bully my Wentian anymore. You are so alluring, how can you die alone? Humph. Qin Yao, you better understand the relationship between us. Right now, Wentian already belongs to Qing'er and Qingqing. You have to step aside. Luo Huan smiled. Her relationship with Qin Yao had always been extremely good. So what of it? I'm still his elder sister, Qing'er and Qingqing. Don't you guys agree? Qin Yao gently spoke. Naturally. Mo Qingqing smiled warmly. Qing'er also smiled as she watched everyone chatting. The atmosphere was truly lively. So many people are helping him. This miss is so pitiful. Luo Huan felt wronged. That can't be. Right now, Sir Qin is already the Heaven Empyrean of the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms. There are many immortal kings and emperors in the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms who have many concubines and concubines. The status of the Heaven Empyrean naturally wouldn't be inferior. Sir Qin is already married. He won't snatch the position of the wife, but he still has concubines. Why don't Sir Qin pick a few? What do you think about the holy maiden of my clan? The beautiful Namfeng Xinga actually joked, her words causing Nam Huang Yunqi's expression to stiffen. She glared at Nanfeng Shanga. What nonsense are you talking about? Did I say something wrong? Nanfeng Shunga smiled. Naturally. Nam Huang Yunqi replied. I understand. Our holy maiden doesn't want to be a concubine? Nanfeng Shunga continued joking. Qin Wentian smiled at the two of them. Nam Huang Yunqi glanced at Qin Wentian as her beautiful eyes flickered. You guys are intentionally trying to frame Wentian. Qin Yao giggled as she stared at Qing'er and Qingqing. Qingqing even intentionally played along and pinched Qin Wentian, causing all the maidens to laugh. Bai Qing watched everything from the back. A smile still hung on her face. The cold-blood emperor was like a little girl at this moment, revealing a radiant and innocent smile. She didn't say anything and only quietly watched everything. Being able to see her Wentian Gitch so happy and blissful, she was already very satisfied. If she could continue watching him like this, how beautiful would that be? Elder Sis Qing'er and Elder Sis Qingqing were both so beautiful and deeply in love with Wentian Gitch. They would definitely be able to live a very, very good life. Little Qing, come over here. Qin Wentian called out when he saw Bai Qing smiling foolishly at the back. Bai Qing started. She stared at Qin Wentian in a daze as she walked over and called out, Wentian Gitch. Qin Wentian stretched out his hand and tousled Bai Qing's hair. His gaze was filled with doting love. This little lass was still the same as when she was young. Her smile was so pure and beautiful, causing people to forget all their troubles. In the future, will you cultivate on the myriad Devil Islands or follow Wentian Gidge? Qin Wentian gently asked. Can I follow Wentian Gidge? Bai Qing inclined her head and giggled foolishly. Naturally you can, as long as little lass Qing is willing. Qin Wentian rapped her head twice. In that case, I will follow Wentian Gidge to cultivate. Bai Qing giggled foolishly. Okay, but if you follow me, you might encounter danger. It won't be as safe as staying on the myriad Devil Islands. Qin Wentian's voice was gentle. I'm not afraid. Bai Qing shook her head resolutely. Silly lass. Qin Wentian stared at Bai Qing as he thought back to when she was young. She was such a pure and kind young lady. It was unknown how much hardship she had to endure to reach her current state. From an ordinary mortal, she became the Blood Priestess, the Blood Emperor. Although Qin Wentian didn't see it personally, he could imagine how much hardship she had to go through. Everyone chatted for a long time before the beauties bid their farewells and left, returning to their own residences. Only Qin Wentian, Qing'er and Qingcheng remained. Little Rascal was also brought away by purgatory. He didn't want to be a hindrance here. Mo Qingcheng laughed as she stared at Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian to shiver involuntarily. Staring at Mo Qingcheng's smile, his heart shuddered. Despite knowing the answer, he still asked, Qingcheng, what's wrong? There are so many beauties casting flirtatious glances at you. How do you feel? Mo Qingcheng giggled. The living dead. When they saw that person, they immediately knew that it was another living dead. However, this living dead's realm wasn't high. He was very ordinary and posed no threat to them, and so they continued forward. Along the way they saw many living corpses. They had no aura of life, but they truly existed. Some of the living corpses were even doing the same thing over and over again. They also saw a living corpse hugging a piece of clothing. Although the clothing was extremely ancient, it hadn't decayed. It was a woman's clothing. The living corpse hugged it tightly as if it was afraid of losing it. Their gazes gradually turned heavy. There were actually so many living corpses in this ancient battlefield? What did this mean? Could it be that those who died back then, there was someone who executed a heaven-defying innate technique that allowed them to continue living? However, they were using a different method, living corpses, to exist in this world. How tragic was this? At this moment, they suddenly felt a cold beam of light shooting over. The will of death enveloped their bodies. They turned their gazes in a certain direction, only to see a silhouette directly soaring up into the sky. The silhouette roared, "Kill!" This voice was filled with boundless killing intent. That silhouette's speed was incomparably fast, like lightning, directly rushing towards one of the Empyreans. That Empyrean instantly unleashed a torrential rain of swords. He pointed his finger downwards and instantly, the radiance of a holy sword descended from the heavens, capable of destroying everything in its path. With a poochie sound, that Empyrean silhouette was directly cleaved into two as he coldly snorted. Kill, kill, kill. Another cold voice filled with killing intent rang out. This voice was incomparably desolate, and there were two voices, as though they came from two different people, yet they completely overlapped. Two bolts of lightning continued shooting towards the Empyrean in the air. It was none other than that Empyrean who was cleaved into two. The countenances of the Empyreans drastically changed. They had just relaxed their vigilance when they saw such a shocking scene. This was especially so for the Empyrean who was attacked. His body transformed into a sharp sword as he pierced forward. Only by doing so could he evade this attack. Boom! A gigantic black hand directly grabbed hold of the sharp sword. The sword penetrated through it, slicing into the Empyrean's body. However, the other half of the Empyrean's body blasted out with a punch, causing the sound of shattering to ring out. An incomparably tyrannical strength caused the sword to shatter as a scream of misery rang out. That Empyrean's body was smashed into pieces as blood rained down from the sky. This scene was too terrifying. The other Empyreans were all stunned. After that, they saw the other half of the Empyrean's body shouting, "Kill, kill, 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 kill. We can't kill him, retreat." The Empyrean silhouettes flickered as they retreated. They actually didn't dare to fight. It wasn't that they couldn't win against the Empyrean, but rather the Empyrean was simply unkillable. How could they fight? The Empyrean's body was already dead. That Empyrean sword had already cleaved the Empyrean into two, yet it was useless. The Empyrean's two halves attacked at the same time. Just the sight of this scene caused the hearts of the Empyrean to tremble. Kill, kill, kill. The cold voice seemed to penetrate through the ancient times, resounding through the air. Many Empyreans inclined their heads and stared at the sky. After that, numerous Empyreans soared up into the air, rushing towards the Empyrean who just appeared. At this moment the Empyreans' countenances were as pale as paper. They only felt that doomsday had arrived. How could this be? How could this world be so terrifying? Not long after, screams of misery resounded through this entire space. Under the black sun, the Empyreans who tried to scout the area all died here. In addition, since they could reach this place, it was clear that the others could as well. More and more news was transmitted to the supreme ancient immortal realms. For a period of time, many peak powers in the supreme ancient immortal realms moved out. The news started to circulate, causing a huge commotion. Compared to the supreme ancient immortal realms, Azure Mystic was as calm as ever. Since this was a forbidden ground, no one in Azure Mystic would be able to enter it. They had no way to know what happened there. Qin Wentian was still in Heaven Empyrean City, waiting for news. With so many experts arriving in Azure Mystic, it was impossible for there to be no news. In truth, he hoped that ancient Azure Mystic wouldn't appear. If not, it wouldn't be a good thing for the current Azure Mystic immortal realms. He suddenly thought of something. The secret recorded in the Wenxin Temple was something that was covered in dust to the current Azure Mystic. The sealed Azure Mystic immortal realms wouldn't know about it. But what about the supreme ancient immortal realms? The supreme ancient immortal realms had boundless history. They would surely have a great deal of information regarding this world-ending battle. Maybe they had never given up on searching for it. Hence, in the supreme ancient immortal realms, the world-ending battle was definitely not a secret. At this moment, in the Heaven Empyrean Palace, the Southern Phoenix Matriarch and the Dark North Immortal Emperor came over to seek guidance on some questions regarding Empyreans. Qin Wentian suddenly felt like making a trip to the forbidden ground of the Immortal Law Mountain in the northern regions. Back then, it was none other than that old freak who sent him into the supreme ancient immortal realms. But now, even Qin Wentian wasn't confident that he would be able to find that old freak. That old freak was simply too mysterious. Palace Lord, this subordinate has something to report. Su Li's voice drifted over from outside. Qin Wentian replied, Speak. According to the news, a group of mysterious experts suddenly appeared in the eastern regions of our immortal realms. This subordinate suspects that they are from the supreme ancient immortal realms. Su Li spoke. Got it. You can leave for now. Continue to pay close attention to the movements in the immortal realms. Once there's any news, report back to me immediately. Qin Wentian spoke. Yes, Palace Lord. Su Li acknowledged and left. Several days later, Su Li made another report. Many more experts appeared in the central regions of the immortal realms. And after some time, Su Li came to report again. Mysterious experts also appeared in the southern regions of the immortal realms. However, they didn't cause any commotion and were extremely low profile. For a very long period of time, Su Li continued to make many reports regarding the arrival of mysterious experts. Also, the frequency of the reports grew more and more frequent. And this was only the power they discovered. There were still many that they hadn't discovered yet. Qin Wentian was very clear what this meant. A large number of experts from the supreme ancient immortal realms had arrived. What should come would eventually come. Qin Wentian passed down his orders, telling the various powers to pay close attention to the movements of the mysterious experts and find their final destination. It wasn't easy to track the movements of Empyreans. However, the Heaven Empyrean gave the order. Countless powers in the immortal realms became spies, constantly sending news to Qin Wentian's Heaven Empyrean Palace in Heaven Empyrean City. With regards to the movements of the mysterious experts in the immortal realms, there was a common point. That was, they appeared most frequently in the northern regions of the immortal realms. Also, their locations were the former Hokage Sengoku Kingdom. The target continued to shrink. Qin Wentian told the Dark North Immortal Emperor to pay close attention to the movements of the Hokage Sengoku Kingdom. There was no need to doubt the influence of the Dark North Immortal Emperor in the Hokage Sengoku Kingdom. Very soon he found the location where the mysterious experts left their last traces. Their final destination was the forbidden ground of the Hokage Sengoku Kingdom, in the depths of the Mountain of Laws. After Qin Wentian learned of this news, he was completely stunned. The location was actually the forbidden ground of the Hokage Sengoku Kingdom. Within the Heaven Empyrean Palace, Qin Wentian stood there speechlessly for a long time. The forbidden ground of the Hokage Sengoku Kingdom. This place was too familiar. Could this be a coincidence? Qin Wentian silently mused. Chapter 1715. The forbidden ground of the Dark North Immortal Mountain was rarely visited by people. This was especially so for the depths of the forbidden ground. Back then, Qin Wentian also entered there by mistake. But now, in the depths of the forbidden grounds of the Dark North Immortal Mountain, in a place where outsiders couldn't see, a large number of experts were gathered. Experts were as common as the clouds, and these experts all belonged to different camps. Right now, not only were there Empyreans here, many immortal emperors were also sent here to carry out orders. Empyreans, even to many powers in the supreme ancient immortal realms, they were considered rare. For example, the lifelong realm was boundlessly vast, but how many Empyreans were there? Even the World Palace lords of the 9 world palaces were merely characters at this level. Naturally, if one were to look at the entire supreme ancient immortal realms, there were simply too many Empyreans. The supreme ancient immortal realms were simply too vast. There were countless world overlords here, and Empyreans were like grains of sand in the Ganges River. On an ancient peak in the Immortal Law Mountain, Qin Wentian arrived. He stood at the peak of the Immortal Law Mountain and stared into the distance. Although he was now at the Empyrean realm, his immortal sense wasn't invincible in the forbidden ground. It was restricted. In the air far away, a resplendent light suddenly flashed as a group of experts appeared in the air. They were all clad in resplendent robes, and the person in the center looked extremely young. However, his eyes seemed to be golden in color and contained an incomparably terrifying penetrative power. A single glance from him seemed to be able to pierce through space. He took out a divine weapon. It was an incomparably gigantic ancient bell. With a wave of his hand, the ancient bell flew forward, entering the misty formation of the forbidden ground. In the next instant, a booming sound of the great Tao rang out from the depths of the forbidden ground. The misty space suddenly shone with an incomparably resplendent golden light. In the next instant, the glow of millions of runes bloomed in the air, resembling bolts of lightning that arced through the void, containing the might of the great Tao of heaven and earth within. The bell of the great path continued ringing. Rays of light that pierced through the darkness appeared in the fog. After that, the ancient bell appeared in everyone's field of vision once again. This time it became extremely large, directly breaking through the shackles of the fog formation and descending into the sky. It released tens of millions of rays of golden light that enveloped the vast and boundless forbidden area. The fog continued to be dispersed. As the bell of the great path rang, the space gradually became clear. Only the endless golden light of lightning could be seen flickering within. His immortal sense was no longer obstructed, and his vision grew clearer. Many silhouettes appeared before him. This forbidden ground wasn't as vast as he had imagined. He could see everything with a single glance. Everything was because of the formation. Qin Wentian saw a large number of experts gathered together. They stood in front of a door, and there seemed to be a beam of dark light piercing through the sky. A part of the sky fell there, as though it could lead to another world. The Doomsday Battlefield. Qin Wentian thought of the content recorded in the ancient records as he sighed in his heart. Ancient Azure Mystic, the Doomsday Battlefield. It was buried by a supreme existence using a heaven-defying technique. Now that the seal on Azure Mystic was loosened, it seemed like that existence intentionally wanted the Doomsday Battlefield to be exposed to the world. If not, given his heaven-defying abilities, how would he be able to find this place? Old freak, does this have anything to do with you? Qin Wentian silently mused. Back then, he met that madman in this forbidden ground. But now there were no traces of that madman at all. The ancient bell flew back, transforming into a palm-sized bell that was held in the palm of the young man. Many experts turned their gazes over, and when they saw the young man, their eyes flashed as though they were trying to guess his identity. Such a divine treasure, He must definitely be an extraordinary character. We pay our respects to Sir Wang. An Empyrean walked out. He seemed to know the identity of this young man and his group as he bowed to him. Although he was also an Empyrean, this Empyrean's attitude towards Sir Wang could only be described as respectful. In any place there would always be a strict hierarchy. This was even more so in the supreme ancient immortal realms. This point could be seen clearly from this world. Sir Wang. Many people were guessing as their eyes flashed. After that, the eyes of many involuntarily narrowed as shock filled their hearts. All of them walked up and clasped their hands. We pay our respects to Sir Wang. They didn't know Sir Wang's name, but they only knew that he was surnamed Wang and which clan he came from. That was already enough. Sir Wang broke through the illusion formation with a single thought. Truly admirable. Someone praised. That Sir Wang still stood in the air. His attitude was cold. He who was holding on to the ancient bell seemed a little arrogant. Just a mere formation, a smokescreen. Sir Wang's voice was as sharp and filled with arrogance. As long as one heard his words, they would know what sort of person he was. His pride was ingrained deep in his bones and could be seen from his demeanor. However, he naturally had the qualifications to do so. Even in the supreme ancient immortal realms, his clan could already stand at an extremely high position. But although he was arrogant, he was very clear about what he came here for. This time, his clan entrusted everyone to him. He naturally had to obtain some harvest. Did the scouts send any news? Sir Wang asked. Yes, we've already ascertained that this is the legendary world-ending battlefield. Someone spoke. There are many zombies there. They seem to be those who died in the world-ending battle back then. There are also some who are extremely powerful. We can't kill them unless we directly crush them into dust. Many of the people we sent here have already died. There's no news at all. There's one more point. That person continued. This gate is a one-way gate. After entering, it will vanish. Currently, no one has found the exit yet. In that case, continue to scout. Sir Wang calmly spoke. Many people aren't willing to go there anymore. That person spoke in a light voice. Sir Wang's eyes flashed. He instantly understood. Even for Empyreans, there was an extremely high possibility that they would die if they entered. Let alone the fact that many powers were using immortal emperors to scout the area. It was basically a path of death. Those subordinates most probably didn't want to send themselves to death. Although they were curious about the ancient battlefield, their lives were more important. Aren't there many immortal emperors in this immortal realms? Just send them there directly. Sir Wang calmly spoke. His tone was extremely calm. It was like in his eyes, the lives of the immortal emperors in this immortal realms weren't even worth mentioning. It was basically insufficient to cause any ripples in his heart. That person's eyes flashed. At this moment another person spoke. Senior, you might not know this, but right now the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms has a new ruler. He calls himself the Heaven Empyrean and forbids people from the supreme ancient immortal realms from doing anything in the immortal realms. Before this, many powerful characters from the supreme ancient immortal realms have already been killed by this Heaven Empyrean. Heaven Empyrean, what arrogant words! That young man's eyes flashed with disdain. He calmly spoke. After the world-ending battle, Azure Mystic is no longer the ancient Azure Mystic. It has also been sealed for so many years and is nothing but a weak and desolate place. Yet, you still dare to proclaim yourself as the Heaven Empyrean? Truly a frog at the bottom of a well. Since you are the Heaven Empyrean of Azure Mystic, tell him to send immortal emperors from Azure Mystic to scout the way. He won't give the command. At this moment Qin Wentian spoke from afar. The eyes of the young man surnamed Wang turned over, staring at Qin Wentian. The sharpness in his eyes caused people to feel a sense of fear. Who are you? He asked. The frog at the bottom of a well that you are referring to. Qin Wentian replied. Heaven Empyrean? The young man surnamed Wang mockingly laughed. Calling himself the Heaven Empyrean in Azure Mystic? What arrogant words. Just when he was about to act, he thought about it and nodded his head. Although he didn't know what sort of character that major character was, he was still a demon after all. Since this was the case, he might as well spare the immortal emperors of Azure Mystic this time around. With a wave of his hand, the divine treasure bell flew back into his palm. He stared at everyone as he spoke. If no one is willing to lead the way, let's wait for more powers to gather before we enter together. Could it be that he's afraid of Wang Yi? Thinking of Wang Yi's identity and how powerful he was, everyone nodded. Seemed like that was the case. At this moment, Qin Wentian continued, however, the experts of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms are not allowed to wreak havoc in Azure Mystic. No one. The word anyone naturally referred to something. No matter what your identity is, or what sort of experts you are from the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms, this Wang Yi of the Wang clan was naturally included. He who was forced back by a single strike didn't show any signs of weakness at all. He immediately changed the topic and spoke such domineering words, causing many people to have strange expressions on their faces. Was he not worried that Wang Yi would kill him on the spot in a fit of rage? As the Heaven Empyrean of the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms, Qin Wentian has killed many Empyreans before. But no matter what, he was only the leader of the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms. How high was Wang Yi's status? In addition to the terrifying divine weapons and treasures he had, it was very possible for him to kill the Heaven Empyrean of the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms. Wang Yi calmly glanced at Qin Wentian. His eyes were filled with mockery. He decided not to act against the immortal emperors of Azure Mystic, because of the respect he had for that expert who sealed the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms. As for a mere Qin Wentian, would he even care about him? Qin Wentian's words were merely self-mockery in his eyes. It was laughable. Hence, there was no need for him to care about it as it would be beneath his status. Qin Wentian stood on the ancient peak, remaining at the entrance of the forbidden ground. His white robes fluttered in the wind, exuding a carefree aura. For the next period of time, more and more experts rushed here. Many Empyreans were from the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms. Other than this, there were also some experts with transcendent statuses. They were the same as Wang Yi, having terrifying origins. Many Empyreans were extremely respectful and humble when they saw them. There was no exception. All of them exuded a transcendent aura. Regardless of their age, all of them were the same. With different statuses, the aura they exuded would naturally be different as well. In the former forbidden ground of the Dark North Immortal Mountain, with a single glance, one could see experts from different camps here. Qin Wentian, who stood on the ancient peak, felt his heart grow heavier when he saw this scene. Such a terrifying power could easily destroy the people of Azure Mystic with a wave of their hands. In addition, he basically had no way to stop them. There were simply too many Empyreans here. True experts were as common as the clouds. At this moment, Empyreans who were extremely rare even in the lifelong realm were like the multitude of mortals, not conspicuous at all. Only those characters with the same status as Wang Yi had transcendent and lofty statuses. Qin Wentian heard the discussions of many people. He knew that these people were from the heavenly deity race of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms. Heavenly deities. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. From the ancient records in the Wenqin Temple, he knew that those characters who descended from the heavens and destroyed ancient Azure Mystic were all known as heavenly deities, lofty and unexcelled in the world. Right now, these experts who came to this forbidden ground also claimed to be from the heavenly deity race. Could it be that their ancestors were those heavenly deities from the past? Or could it be that the heavenly deity race was the title given to those supreme hegemonic powers in the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms? If this was the case, Qin Wentian also understood why Wang Yi had such a powerful divine weapon in his hands. People from the heavenly deity race. Just this name alone was sufficient to shock countless experts in the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms. In the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms, most probably, they were all characters at the peak, let alone in this Azure Mystic that was sealed. How could such characters not be lofty and lofty? Since the heavenly deity race sent these characters to Azure Mystic to deal with the matter in the Forbidden Ground, there was no need to doubt their strength. For those experts from the heavenly deity race who appeared, there were even some who manifested strange phenomena. Earlier, Wang Yi's eyes were golden. It was unknown what kind of ability that was. There were also some who actually had wings on their bodies. That didn't seem to be a cultivation art or innate technique. They seemed to be born with wings. Also, there were incomparably resplendent complicated runes on the wings, resembling the runes of the Great Tao. Qin Wentian guessed that this most probably had something to do with the bloodline of their heavenly deity race. The heavenly deity race had an extremely powerful inheritance. If their bloodlines were to awaken, they wouldn't be like those unknown bloodlines in the lower world. Their bloodlines would be truly supremely powerful. We can enter now. At this moment, an expert from the heavenly deity race spoke. Right now, the experts gathered here were already a terrifying force. He didn't want to wait any longer. The person who spoke was a middle-aged man. He had a muscular build and his palms were larger than ordinary people. Everyone, let's move out. The man with a pair of wings on his back spoke. The wings slowly flapped, and even though the runic light on them didn't light up, it still gave off an extremely terrifying feeling. It was as though as long as the runic light shone, it would be able to unleash a terrifying might. There will definitely be more experts coming later. But if we can't even obtain anything with such a lineup, it would be meaningless no matter how many experts we send. Another person who looked extremely young spoke. Although he was a male, he was extremely handsome and exuded a demonic sense of beauty. Such elegance was something many females couldn't compare to. He was definitely a handsome man. Are you worried that your good fortune would be snatched away by others? A cold voice drifted over. The man who spoke exuded a terrifyingly sharp aura. Just by casually standing there, he gave off a lofty and aloof feeling, as though he was extremely lonely. At the center of his brows, there was a vertical line that looked extremely demonic. It was like a line that would occasionally move, as though it could open up and transform into a pair of eyes. One figure after another moved forward. The experts of the heavenly deity race took the lead. In an instant, the great army was mobilized. Countless experts followed behind them, preparing to enter together with them. It was as though they were the followers of the heavenly deity race. The experts from the heavenly deity race from the supreme ancient immortal realms all had terrifying influence in their respective regions. The people from these regions naturally followed the experts from the heavenly deity race. Right now, they already knew that ancient Azure Mystic was filled with danger. If they followed behind these people, they would naturally have a higher chance of survival. If even the experts from the heavenly deity race couldn't deal with them, they would die for sure. The experts from the various powers all entered in a line, entering the forbidden ground. The experts from the heavenly deity race opened up the path while countless people followed after them. All of them entered the forbidden ground, stepping into that unknown place. To Qin Wentian, that forbidden ground was also an unknown place. However, he knew that there would definitely be someone who knew some secrets. Back then, that crazy old freak had always been in this forbidden ground. It was impossible for him to not know the secrets of this place. In addition, Qin Wentian suspected that if it wasn't for that crazy old freak leaving, no one would be able to unravel the secrets of this forbidden ground and find this gate. Even the Empyreans from the heavenly deity race wouldn't be able to do so. Empyreans from the heavenly deity race definitely wouldn't be able to reach the level of that crazy old freak. The number of experts continued to decrease until all of them entered. Qin Wentian stood on the ancient peak for a long time, quietly watching everything. Finally, he stepped out and also moved forward, directly passing through that mysterious gate. In the next instant, his silhouette vanished from his original location and appeared in another part of the sky. The sky was dark, the sun was black, and there were 9 gigantic black rocks that resembled constellations. They shone with a mysterious luster, giving off a heavy sense of pressure. Ancient Azure Mystic, the battlefield of the apocalypse? Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at the gloomy sky. Even the sun was black in color and radiated a sinister aura. It truly felt like the end of the world. Back then, how terrifying was the world-ending war in ancient Azure Mystic exactly? Even the sun had turned black in color and was buried by the sun. Chapter 1717. The experts from the supreme ancient immortal realms continued forward. They were similarly enveloped by the sinister aura, but their hearts were also filled with fervor, filled with intense anticipation. This was truly the battlefield recorded in the ancient records of their clans. This was especially so for the descendants of the heavenly deity race. Their records were the clearest when it came to the world-ending battle in ancient Azure Mystic back then. They knew much more compared to others. Back then, how many heaven-defying characters died here, including the heavenly deities of the supreme ancient immortal realms? The heaven-defying divine weapons and treasures of these heavenly deities were also buried together with them. Ancient heavenly deities naturally had divine depositories on them. These were all heaven-defying treasures. In addition, during the world-ending battle in ancient Azure Mystic, how many transcendent powers of ancient Azure Mystic were annihilated? Some of these powers were as powerful as the heavenly deity race. What sort of divine depositories did these powers have? Everything was simply unimaginable. If they could obtain some of the divine depositories left behind by ancient Azure Mystic, it would definitely be an extremely great opportunity for their clans to grow stronger. There were simply too many experts in the supreme ancient immortal realms. Everyone hoped that they could stand at the peak. However, given how vast the world is, how many supreme experts from the supreme ancient immortal realms were there? The sound of air being torn apart rang out as the experts moved towards the ancient battlefield in ancient Azure Mystic. In this desolate world there were no signs of life. The atmosphere was gloomy and filled with despair. There were zombies appearing in the immortal sense. These zombies were all very quiet and were busy with their own matters. It was like they had been doing this for millions of years. They had no thoughts of their own, only their obsession before they died, unwilling to fade away. When the powerful zombies saw the arrival of so many experts, their empty eyes stared up at the sky. In an instant, a fearsome killing intent radiated from them as they directly soared up into the air. Kill, kill, kill. Similar to what the scouts encountered back then, many zombies directly rushed up into the air, not fearing death at all. Humph! That expert with a vertical line between his brows directly opened his third eye. The vertical line between his brows opened, transforming into a pair of vertical eyes that directly shot out a beam of light, cleaving apart the heavens and earth. With a poochie sound, a living corpse that was rushing up into the air was directly cleaved apart. However, his movements didn't stop. His body that was cleaved apart didn't feel any pain at all. But earlier, the immortal senses of everyone couldn't detect his existence. After that, more and more figures appeared. Their robes were tattered and some of them had flaws in their bodies. Either their arms were destroyed or they lost half their faces. Their expressions were extremely malevolent and terrifying. The one who caused the hearts of everyone to tremble the most was a female. She had a countenance so beautiful that it could even shame the moon and flowers. However, there was actually a terrifying scar on her from head to toe. It was so shocking that no one dared to stare at her. Seems like an ancient power from ancient Azure Mystic was destroyed here back then. These living corpses still have their obsessions from when they were alive, unwilling to leave. What deep emotions they have. Someone spoke in a low voice. However, these Empyreans from the supreme ancient immortal realms wouldn't allow anyone to obstruct their path. Wang Yi took out that terrifying great bell. With a wave of his hand, the great bell flew forward. It was incomparably huge, enveloping the boundless heavens and earth. Destructive lightning shot out, annihilating this space. The sound of an ancient bell resounded through the heavens and earth, like the death knell of death. Many of the living dead were directly destroyed, their corpses not even remaining, completely vanishing into thin air. Since they are already dead, why is there a need to leave their obsessions in the mortal world? It's time for them to leave. A terrifying phenomenon manifested behind another Empyrean from the heavenly deity race. Beams of light from the great Tao shot out, destroying everything in their path. The Empyreans from the supreme ancient immortal realms all rushed forward, destroying all the living corpses. Poochie. At this moment, an incomparably resplendent killing light suddenly radiated out from the void. In an instant, several supreme experts of the supreme ancient immemorial realms were killed on the spot, their bodies disintegrating into dust. The expressions of those experts changed when they saw the sudden death of several supreme experts, as vigilance flashed in their eyes. Chi-chi. More beams of killing light shot out from the void. That Empyrean who had a look of wariness in his eyes screamed in agony as his body was severed from the waist. The other Empyreans all hurriedly retreated, but the sounds of explosions rang out unceasingly as more and more Empyreans died. Countless experts rushed over in that direction, but they only saw that the beams of killing light were formless and formless, shuttling through the void as more and more people died. Boom! The bell chimes of the great Tao suddenly rang out. Wang Yi controlled the ancient divine bell to descend, enveloping the heavens and earth, destroying everything. A deafening sound of collision rang out. The ancient bell seemed to have been struck by an incomparably powerful force. After that, on the desolate land ahead, a figure appeared. This person only had half a face and was extremely malevolent. His back was facing everyone, giving off a sense of loneliness. The hearts of everyone trembled. This was the power of a world overlord. When this living corpse was alive, he must have been a world overlord existence. Since he has already died, he should return. Senior, why must you be so stubborn? Wang Yi spoke. However, as the sound of his voice faded, the living corpse's silhouette had already vanished. Wang Yi's eyes gleamed with a terrifying golden light as a golden killing domain manifested in the surroundings. The ancient bell radiated a supreme might, sweeping through everything. At this moment, everyone finally saw the killing light of the void. Within the golden domain, the movements of the undead seemed to have been slowed down, becoming extremely clear. That killing light was none other than the undead himself. He was able to execute the killing of the void. He was invisible and formless. He was able to blend into the void. Attack! Wang Yi roared. The ancient bell radiated an incomparably resplendent light of the great Tao that expanded frenziedly, enveloping this entire space. Even if one escaped into the void within the space enveloped by the ancient bell, they wouldn't be able to escape the killing might of the ancient bell. Tens of thousands of beams of destructive light of the great Tao shot out from the ancient bell. Booming sounds rang out unceasingly as the ancient bell vibrated, shaking the entire space. With a poochie sound, Wang Yi groaned in pain. He felt that he couldn't hold on any longer. If this continued on, although his divine weapons and treasures were powerful enough, he wouldn't be able to control them. He would be injured from the impact. Why are you still not attacking? Wang Yi spoke. Finally, the ancient bell was forced back. Wang Yi coughed out blood. Once the living corpse appeared before him, it wanted to kill him on the spot. Wang Yi's expression was cold to the extreme. His golden eyes gleamed with a resplendent light that enveloped this space. His eyes seemed to shoot out two heaven-splitting swords, slashing apart his opponent. But even so, he was still heavily injured. Blood flowed from his golden eyes. An expert from the heavenly deity race clad in snow-white robes took out a white feather fan. With a wave of his fan, a terrifying cold energy of the great Tao manifested in the air, sealing everything in ice. A living corpse appeared, his body covered in layers of frost. The winged expert from the heavenly deity race flapped his wings and vanished without a trace, directly appearing at the location where his opponent was. His figure transformed into a myriad of illusory lights as a silver spear suddenly appeared in his hands. He consecutively unleashed a myriad of spear arts, causing the space around him to be lacerated. That living corpse's body was pierced through repeatedly, but it seemed like he didn't feel anything. With a single step, he vanished again and directly appeared beside that expert, unleashing another attack. The winged expert from the heavenly deity race was greatly shocked. His wings of the great Tao enveloped the entire space, radiating boundless light. After that, everyone saw his body trembling madly, flashing unceasingly in the air. Finally, with a thunderous boom, the body of that expert from the heavenly deity race was injured and was forced back. Even his wings of the great Tao were damaged. Resplendent light flashed. The wings of the great Tao gradually recovered to their original state. As for that world overlord level living corpse, he actually vanished completely. These experts from the heavenly deity race rely on their innate techniques and supreme divine weapons. They actually have the strength to annihilate world overlords. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed. However, the feeling that this living corpse world overlord gave him was somewhat weak. He merely didn't fear death and seemed extremely powerful. However, the world overlord had lost his spiritual qi and wasn't able to unleash his full strength. Chapter 17:18. Blood flowed from the corner of Wang Yi's mouth. His eyes gleamed with sharpness. As expected of the ancient battlefield, they actually encountered a world overlord zombie so quickly. If this world overlord zombie had intelligence, he most probably wouldn't be so easy to deal with. Cultivation realms could allow one to comprehend a world heart and give birth to a heaven heart mandate. This was definitely extremely terrifying. A heaven heart mandate was also known as heaven's will. In the truest sense, it had surpassed the Empyrean realm and reached another level. However, since they came here from the supreme ancient immortal realms, they naturally came prepared. How could they retreat? Their powerful immortal senses extended forward, exploring the boundlessly vast desolate mountain range. There seemed to be no end to this place, it was boundlessly vast. They also understood that for a truly powerful power, their territory would naturally be boundless. The heavenly deity race they were from was the same as well. Although it was said to be a race, it was actually comparable to an entire world. After countless years of development, how strong would a race be? How large would it be? This was simply unimaginable. Their population was already extremely terrifying. Hence, the larger the desolate land, the higher the chances of them encountering good fortune. Many Empyreans who followed them felt their hearts shaking. Even though they have cultivated for many years and have already entered the Empyrean realm, they still found it hard to maintain their calmness under this heavy pressure. This was especially so when that world overlord zombie appeared earlier. Many people have already died. The experts here could easily sweep through an entire world. Each of them was extremely terrifying, but in this desolate land, they seemed extremely tiny and insignificant. Under the dark sun, they continued moving forward in a small area. If one looked down from the sun, they would be able to see that they were like tiny particles moving about. In the center of the desolate land, there were also many similarly tiny figures. They were scattered in all directions, quietly standing there, as though they have been guarding this place for countless years. Those quietly standing figures seemed to have discovered something. Their empty eyes suddenly gleamed with a sinister light filled with killing intent. After that, their bodies moving towards a certain direction. Halt! Almost at the same time, the experts from the deity race who entered from the outside world waved their hands and said. They felt uneasy, as if they had entered a wasteland where danger lurked in every corner. On the way forward, this feeling of uneasiness grew even stronger. A figure flickered and appeared in their vision silently. This figure was in tatters and his body was pierced through. There was no flesh or blood within his body, and his eyes didn't have the luster of a living person. Clearly, this was a living corpse. Back then in the ancient battlefield where Azure Mystic was destroyed, there were many people who died but their souls didn't scatter. Could it be that the imperishable Heaven Lord used some heaven-defying methods to resurrect them as living corpses? More figures appearing before their eyes, surrounding the experts who entered the ancient battlefield. Before these people acted, it was impossible to ascertain how strong they were. However, the uneasiness in the hearts of the experts had already reached a peak. At that time, that world overlord also silently appeared in the ancient battlefield like this. If there were several world overlord level living corpses among the people who appeared, what kind of terrifying consequences would there be? They didn't dare to think any further. Maybe, given their Empyrean cultivation bases, wanting to search for good fortune in this ancient battlefield was simply wishful thinking. Poochie. At this moment, someone's body was directly severed from the waist. That person didn't even have the time to react. He lowered his head and stared at the lower half of his body as a look of boundless terror appeared on his face. No. An incomparably miserable voice rang out. He only felt terror in his heart. The others were also trembling as they stared at the scene before them. But in the next instant they saw more and more people being sliced apart. This entire space seemed to have transformed into a world that was being sliced apart, and was currently being sliced apart. At the World Overlord level, this is the Skyrend Heaven Heart Mandate. The fusion of spatial energy and the source origin of the sword is able to create a Heaven Heart Mandate. Skyrend Heaven Heart Mandate is able to directly tear apart a piece of space. Someone exclaimed in shock. Evidently, there were world overlords among the living corpses who acted. They didn't say anything and directly killed the invaders. This was the territory they were protecting. Although they no longer had the ability to think, they still retained their will to kill all invaders with no mercy. Heaven Heart Mandates were also known as Heaven's Will. They had already surpassed the boundaries of source origins and were a type of transcendent energy, a brand new type of energy. In the void flames suddenly appeared, directly rushing into the bodies of everyone, incinerating them. Many people screamed as their bodies were instantly incinerated into nothingness. It was an extremely miserable sight. Another person acted. This person was also a world overlord, who had comprehended a heaven heart mandate. In the blink of an eye, countless screams rang out as countless experts died. The expressions of the experts from the heavenly deity race all changed. "Young Master Wang, save me!" someone screamed, pleading for help from the experts from the heavenly deity race. If it wasn't for the fact that they didn't act, Transcendence would still be as weak as grass and wouldn't be able to withstand a single strike. This was because there were several world overlords among the crowd. How could they fight against them? Even Empyreans wouldn't be able to do so. Terror spread. Everything happened in just a short span of a few breaths of time. 1/3 of the experts had already died, their deaths extremely miserable. Before Wang Yi, the ancient bell radiated an incomparably resplendent light that enveloped him, preventing him from being corroded. His eyes were tightly closed, as though he was communicating with the ancient bell. An instant later, a terrifying might radiated from the ancient bell as bell chimes rang out. Many people felt their souls trembling as they saw the ancient bell flying out. The light from it directly enveloped a world overlord zombie. Boom! The ancient bell flew out by itself, directly enveloping that zombie. That world overlord zombie stepped out as his heaven heart mandate erupted forth. Boundless heaven heart might blasted into the ancient bell, causing intense rumbling sounds to ring out. However, it didn't shatter at all. The light he shot out grew even more resplendent, capable of destroying everything. Beams of light enveloped that world overlord zombie, and from within, a will that didn't belong to Wang Yi erupted forth. That was a heaven heart mandate. It controlled the ancient bell and divine weapons to unleash their power, tearing that world overlord zombie apart. Not only Wang Yi acted, the experts from the various heavenly deity races all acted as well, taking out their supreme divine weapons and unleashing unfathomable might. For a period of time, the might radiating from this desolate area caused even Empyreans to feel fear in their hearts. Qin Wentian stood among the crowd. At this moment, he naturally wouldn't be so foolish as to head out alone. That would simply be courting death. These zombies didn't care who he was, whether he came from the supreme ancient immortal realms or azure mystic. To invaders, they only had a single thought in their minds. That was to slaughter them. Although his combat prowess was extraordinary, he didn't have the confidence to fight against world overlords. World overlords were characters on a completely different level. The higher one's cultivation base was, the more terrifying the disparity between major realms would be. Every step they took was like the distance between heaven and earth. Every step they took was a qualitative leap. Let alone him, even the world overlord supreme divine weapons of these experts from the heavenly deity race would find it hard to contend against them. Qin Wentian naturally understood that right now, these divine weapons were no longer under the control of those Empyreans from the heavenly deity race. Although it seemed like they were unleashing the might of the divine weapons themselves, in truth, there were other mysteries behind it. Qin Wentian guessed that most probably when they came here, these divine weapons had already been tempered using special methods. There were extremely powerful characters from the supreme ancient immortal realms who could control them from afar to unleash shocking might. The foundations of the heavenly deity race in the supreme ancient immortal realms were simply too deep. No matter what methods they had, it wouldn't be surprising at all. The ancient bell in Wang Yi's hand unleashed the might of the great Tao, destroying everything, killing the world overlord level zombies. Wang Yi continued his slaughter, destroying everything in his path. There was also a white feathered fan that waved about, causing the entire space to freeze. After that, the frozen zombies shattered into pieces, resembling snowflakes, vanishing like smoke. Clearly, this wasn't something that could be accomplished with Empyrean source energy. It was also world energy, the might of heaven heart mandates. As for that winged expert from the heavenly deity race, a pair of wings appeared on his back, intertwining with his original wings. He also had a divine spear in his hand. With a flap of his wings, he instantly appeared before an expert and pierced through him, instantly slashing that expert into pieces. The zombies fell unceasingly under his wings and spear. These experts from the heavenly deity race were all going all out. A great battle of mutual destruction erupted. Qin Wentian continued to hide in the crowd. In the surroundings, there were experts dying unceasingly. The number of zombies also decreased unceasingly until they completely vanished. As for the experts who came from the outside world, more than half of them had already died. This was truly terrifying. What place is this exactly? Wang Yi's expression was unsightly. Although he displayed his divine might, he still felt a sense of defeat. Given how confident he was, not long after he entered the ancient battlefield, he already had to borrow external forces to fight. He had no way to fight on his own. This made him feel very uncomfortable. This desolate land might very well have once belonged to a transcendent power. There were already many world overlords whose souls hadn't dissipated. If it was in the past, there would most probably be a group of world overlords here. From this, one could very well imagine how terrifying this transcendent power was. Although he felt a sense of defeat in his heart, there was also anticipation in his heart. He continued moving deeper into the depths of the desolate land. On the way, they encountered many zombies, but all of them were killed by them. After several days, they finally arrived at a certain place. When they stared at the scene before them, great waves of shock rose up in their hearts. From afar, in their field of vision, there was an ancient palace that had long been dilapidated for an unknown number of years. It had already been reduced to ruins. Occasionally, there would be a few incomparably resplendent stone pillars that were still radiating light. However, their radiance had already dimmed. On one of the stone pillars, a figure with only half a body could be seen. He was clad in an incomparably luxurious golden robe, and was like a lofty supreme king. However, only half of his body remained, causing people to feel a chill in their hearts. What was even more terrifying was that in front of this supreme character, in the air, a figure quietly floated there. His wings flickered as the radiance radiating from him illuminated the heavens and earth. His wings blotted out the sky, resembling the laws of the great Tao of heaven and earth. This person was like a true heavenly deity. The heavenly deity from the winged god race coldly spoke, exuding an incomparably tyrannical aura. He was currently familiarizing himself with Yufifan's body. Yufifan's entire demeanor was undergoing a transformation. This caused the other experts from the heavenly deity race to feel envy. This was a heavenly deity ancestor. They were also willing to sacrifice their bodies to fight against him. They would surely be able to gain some insights. Earlier, that heavenly deity had already said that it was impossible to forcefully seize the body of someone else. Seems like the time isn't right. Even if I die, the hope of Azure Mystic won't be extinguished. That heavenly deity sighed, filled with boundless emotions. Senior, I'm someone from Azure Mystic. At this moment, Qin Wentian's silhouette flashed as he walked out from the crowd, arriving before the heavenly deity as he spoke. He was initially hesitating, but the words spoken by that heavenly deity from the winged god race stimulated him. These experts from the heavenly deity race were all buried here, and they all had an intense hatred for Azure Mystic. If this heavenly deity stepped out, he would truly destroy Azure Mystic. He had to stop this no matter what. Hence, he no longer hesitated. Yufifan stared at Qin Wentian. His expression was extremely sharp. Right now, he was already a heavenly deity. That heavenly deity also stared at Qin Wentian as he asked, "In this place, are you the only person from Azure Mystic?" Qin Wentian nodded. For countless years, Azure Mystic has been sealed. But now the seal has loosened and countless people from the supreme ancient immortal realms came here to search for the ancient ruins. They found their way here, and all of them are from the supreme ancient immortal realms. What about you? Why are you here? That heavenly deity asked again. I'm someone from Azure Mystic. After that, I entered the supreme ancient immortal realms for cultivation. Because of the great changes in the world after I returned, I unified Azure Mystic and temporarily became the overlord of Azure Mystic. A few days ago, I found out about the world-ending battle in ancient Azure Mystic, and came here to investigate the secrets of ancient Azure Mystic. Qin Wentian spoke. That heavenly deity stared at him. Fine, I will borrow your body for a while. Don't resist my will. That heavenly deity spoke. Qin Wentian nodded and walked over. After that, a powerful will gushed into Qin Wentian's sea of consciousness. Very soon, Qin Wentian felt a mysterious energy. His will was still present, and it was like what the other party said. There was no sign of him being possessed. My will fuse into your will, temporarily becoming one with you. I need to sense your strength. You have to cooperate with me. The other party is controlling a junior of the same race and would surely be very compatible. If you are defeated, you would be in danger. That heavenly deity directly communicated with Qin Wentian through his will. He knew what Qin Wentian wanted to say with a single thought. Qin Wentian replied. Seems like the secret of his strength was about to be revealed to this heavenly deity. However, an ancient person who has already died shouldn't reveal anything. After all, this was a heavenly deity-level existence. His will fused together with that heavenly deity's will, guiding the other party to familiarize himself with his strength. Very soon Qin Wentian's aura also changed. His eyes gleamed with an incomparably terrifying light. Are you really someone from Azure Mystic? You are not from the supreme ancient immortal realms? That heavenly deity sensed Qin Wentian's strength and felt some disbelief in Qin Wentian's words. Qin Wentian didn't say anything more. He directly transmitted pieces of memories to this heavenly deity, including the time when he became the overlord of Azure Mystic and fought against the Empyreans from the supreme ancient immortal realms. The battle next might surpass the limits of your body. Don't resist it, or it would be very hard for me to control it. The heavenly deity continued. Qin Wentian nodded. He also wanted to see how powerful a heavenly deity would be in his body. Would it be able to allow him to jump levels for a short period of time? Most probably that would be the case. At this moment, a resplendent light cascaded down on this space. Yufifan's wings spread open, resembling the wings of a true heavenly deity. The might of the great Tao gushed forth and Yufifan's eyes gleamed with sharpness. His silhouette flashed as he vanished from his original location. In the next instant, Qin Wentian only felt his body being enveloped by boundless runes of the great Tao. The destructive energy contained within caused him to feel a sense of helplessness. Could Empyreans unleash such might? However, at this moment, the energy in his body suddenly circulated. This wasn't something he could control. His body seemed to vanish from the world, completely vanishing. This feeling was extremely mystical. The boundless killing energy of the great Tao gushed over, but they couldn't touch him at all. He had opened up a space of nothingness by himself. Is this a power that only world overlords can control? A thought appeared in Qin Wentian's heart. He was sensing it. Although this wasn't something he could control and comprehend, he was borrowing the power of his body. This might be extremely useful to his future cultivation, as it could point out a direction for him. With a single thought, he could borrow Qin Wentian's body and use the source origins he comprehended to temporarily form a heaven heart mandate. Although this wasn't something that truly belonged to Qin Wentian, this sort of ability could be said to be heaven-shaking, because the person controlling his body was a heavenly deity. In the next instant, boundless destructive energy directly penetrated through Yufifan's body. Yufifan had a look of terror and despair on his face. "Arr!" A scream of misery rang out. Yufifan's body directly shattered as blood rained down from the sky. He was directly killed. Qin Wentian felt like he was about to faint. His heart pounded wildly. He succeeded. He killed his opponent. His body rapidly recovered, gradually becoming as good as new, like he had never been injured before. Such recovery speed caused him to involuntarily sigh in admiration. He wouldn't be able to do something like this. How can this be possible? An illusory figure appeared. It was none other than that extremely arrogant heavenly deity. He borrowed the body of his descendant, and although it couldn't be said to be a perfect fusion, he was extremely familiar with it and could unleash immense power. It wasn't something the heavenly deity who borrowed Qin Wentian's body could compare to. But even so, he was actually defeated. An Empyrean from the winged god race wouldn't lose to Qin Wentian. In that case, didn't this mean that the heavenly deity who controlled Yufifan's body was defeated by the heavenly deity who controlled Qin Wentian's body? You are someone from Azure Mystic? That heavenly deity turned his gaze to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's expression flickered. A voice filled with the vicissitudes of life rang out from his mouth. Your defeat isn't unjust. He understood his opponent's thoughts. He knew why he was defeated. However, he also knew that his opponent's defeat wasn't unjust. It wasn't his victory, but rather, There was a disparity between the bodies he borrowed. Although Eufifan was in existence from the heavenly deity race, his potential was still far inferior to Qin Wentian's. In addition, the ancient prophecy from back then would become reality. His opponent naturally wouldn't be unjust. Why? Could it be that he is stronger than a descendant of my winged god race? The imposing voice of the heavenly deity seemed to be filled with reluctance. So what if you are the overlord of Azure Mystic? Ancient Azure Mystic has long been destroyed, and the heavenly deity race would eventually conquer everything in the supreme ancient immortal realms. When this battlefield reappeared, everything would be turned to dust. Everything that those existences protected would all be turned into nothingness. You still don't understand. You will never understand. The vicissitude voice rang out from Qin Wentian's mouth once more. He then continued, I once said that Azure Mystic will forever be Azure Mystic. The things you all failed to do in the past, you all will never be able to do it in the future. Now this battle is the proof of everything. It is also a new beginning. History will never change. Ha ha ha, foolish. Back then he buried this entire battlefield. Did he think that he would be able to stop the footsteps of the heavenly deity race? He allowed everyone to revive, becoming the living dead of this world. What is he waiting for? Just like what you said, history will never change. Azure Mystic will eventually be destroyed. This is an inevitability of history. An expert from the heavenly deity race spoke with arrogance. He was buried here and hated that person to the bone. He also hated Azure Mystic to the core. He had always been guessing that the reason why the heavenly deity buried Azure Mystic and allowed the dead to revive was because he wanted to borrow the hands of the dead to protect this place. However, would he be able to do so? Now, the supreme ancient immortal realms have already arrived. Time will prove everything. The imperishable Heaven Lord will continue to protect this land. His body, flesh and blood have already fused with this land. He will protect it forever, undying and imperishable. Qin Wentian's voice was incomparably solemn, like the strongest faith in the world. The supreme existence they believed in was none other than the imperishable Heaven Lord, the Heaven Lord who once led them in battle. However, you won't be able to see all of this. Today you will completely vanish into thin air. Qin Wentian spoke again. A formless terrifying attack blasted through the air, slamming into the illusory figure in the air, causing a thunderous boom to echo out. The other party roared in rage, I'm unwilling. Boom! A powerful formless energy dissipated, gradually turning into nothingness. The will of a heavenly deity was destroyed, completely vanishing from this world, never to exist again. Countless years have passed. He didn't dissipate because he wanted to see the future of this world. But now, he thought that he would be the one to witness it and obtain a new life through a different method. However, he was wrong. What welcomed him wasn't a new life but destruction. Senior. Right now, Qin Wentian felt extremely weak. His entire person felt like he was about to collapse. This was simply too unbearable. Given his body, he unleashed a power that didn't belong to him. This was an overloading battle. If it wasn't for the fact that his body was extremely sturdy, he would be in danger of collapsing. And the other party replied. An illusory figure appeared. This was the will of the heavenly deity leaving Qin Wentian's body. His countenance was filled with the vicissitudes of time. Even after countless years he was still here. When he looked at Qin Wentian, his gaze was filled with warmth and a smile, as though he was extremely happy. It was like he was looking at his own junior. Finally, you are here. A voice rang out from his mouth, causing Qin Wentian to start. He inclined his head and stared at the heavenly deity as a resplendent light gleamed in his eyes. Chapter 1721. The experts from the supreme ancient immortal realms were still gathered together. They could no longer see the battle between Eufifan and Qin Wentian. The two of them were possessed by heavenly deities, and when they battled, they had already vanished from this place. With regards to the ending of this battle, they had no way to predict. Earlier in the sky far away, there was an incomparably resplendent radiance, but now it had vanished. Most probably, this battle between heavenly deities had already ended. Although Qin Wentian was borrowing an Empyrean's body to fight, the might unleashed by the will of a heavenly deity still caused them to be stunned. Euphephon is an expert from the winged god race. If he encounters an elder, he will definitely win and kill his opponent. An expert from the heavenly deity race confidently spoke. They naturally hoped that Euphephon would be victorious. Earlier, from the conversation between the two heavenly deities, they could tell that the supreme ancient heavenly deity and heavenly deity Qingxian both hated each other. Although they were jealous of Euphephon's luck, they still hoped that the supreme ancient heavenly deity would be victorious. This would be beneficial to their future plans. In addition, they didn't want to think that the heavenly deities of the supreme ancient heavenly deity race would be defeated if they borrowed the bodies of their descendants. After all, they were also experts of the heavenly deity race. Let's go. Someone spoke. The miserable scene earlier had already been forgotten by them. Right now they were filled with anticipation in their hearts, hoping that they would be able to meet their ancestor here as well. Some of the ancestors of the heavenly deity race did indeed come here to wage war against ancient Azure Mystic because they were the most proactive batch of experts from the heavenly deity race. Someone took out a messaging crystal and sent a message to the supreme ancient immortal realms. The news of the appearance of heavenly deities was transmitted to the upper world unceasingly, causing great waves of commotion. If Qin Wentian knew of this, he would surely be even more worried. Most probably, the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms wouldn't be able to have peace anymore. At this moment, Qin Wentian was still in a state of shock. He stared at the heavenly deity before him. He had finally arrived? Although his talent was extraordinary, it wasn't an exaggeration to say that he was a supreme genius. But even so, in front of a heavenly deity, a genius at the Empyrean realm was simply too insignificant. A heavenly deity was waiting for him? This sounded simply inconceivable. Not to mention that they clearly didn't know each other, so why were they waiting for him? What do you mean, Senior? Qin Wentian asked. Are you the current master of Azure Mystic? This heavenly deity didn't reply to him. Yes, Senior has already seen those memories. Azure Mystic encountered great chaos, and for the sake of restoring its former peace, I decided to unify the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms. However, I won't remain in Azure Mystic. In the future, I will still head to the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms for cultivation. If not, my cultivation will encounter a bottleneck, and I won't be able to advance any further. Qin Wentian honestly reported. Yes, that heavenly deity nodded. Countless years ago, the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms launched a war against Azure Mystic. Many heavenly deities descended from the sky, wanting to engulf the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms and take away all the divine depositories, wanting Azure Mystic to submit to them. Those who submit will prosper. Hence, this was the reason why this world-ending war happened. The heavens and earth crumbled. Azure Mystic was razed to flat ground. If it wasn't for the Heaven Lord having heaven-defying methods, I'm afraid you wouldn't even be able to see the current Azure Mystic. Great waves rose in Qin Wentian's heart. Although it was just a few words, he could still sense the cruelty of that war. A war that covered an entire world, how terrifying must it be? It was simply hard to imagine how tyrannical those heavenly deities of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms were, wanting to take away all the divine depositories and make Azure Mystic submit to them. However, most probably, even they themselves didn't expect that they would encounter the things that happened after that. Azure Mystic actually resisted, not willing to submit. I'm telling you all this not because I want you to view the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms with hatred. All lives are like this. When one reaches a supreme position, how can they tolerate the disobedience of others? They naturally want to become stronger, plunder the divine depositories to develop themselves and restrict the development of other powers. To those existences who already stand at the peak, they only want to transcend everything, not allowing anyone to threaten their hegemony. The heavenly deity continued. Qin Wentian nodded slightly. Maybe he didn't feel anything now, but it was different for those characters who stood at the peak. They were already lofty. How could they allow others to surpass them and replace their positions? Could it be that they weren't worried that they would be conquered by the other party after they were surpassed? The 33 immortal realms were boundlessly vast, but the number of peak powers were still extremely few. All of them hoped to be able to stand at the very peak, and not be surpassed by those at the lower levels. Hence, cruel plunder and war was naturally unavoidable. Back then, the imperishable Heaven Lord was conferred the title of Heaven Lord, and was a supreme existence in Azure Mystic. However, he had never developed his own power or tried to unify the world. Yeah, who else in this world would have the undying scripture? Undying and indestructible, this is the cultivation art of the imperishable Heaven Lord. That heavenly deity sighed in admiration. The ancient prophecy has become reality. The sun and moon have changed. The sky of Azure Mystic has changed. From now on, you will inherit the will of the imperishable Heaven Lord and protect Azure Mystic from destruction. Me, Qin Wentian, was speechless. This inheritance actually came from the imperishable Heaven Lord? That crazy old freak actually passed down the imperishable Heaven Lord's undying scripture to him just like that? Wasn't this a little too childish? Have you not cultivated the death scripture? That heavenly deity asked again. Qin Wentian shook his head. That old fellow imparted it to a friend of mine. He cultivates the death scripture and is currently in the supreme ancient immortal realms. The eyes of that heavenly deity flashed, feeling somewhat bewildered. After that he spoke, "Summon him here. All the zombies in this battlefield will listen to your summons and fight for you. Hence you won't be fighting alone." Qin Wentian started. The death scripture actually had such a miraculous effect? When he thought of some of Yohuang's methods in the past, Qin Wentian suddenly understood. He frowned. "Senior, her cultivation base is still a little low. She should still be at the peak stage of the immortal emperor realm. Isn't it a little too dangerous? Since you are here, how can he not come? You are so worried about him. Could it be that he is a woman?" That heavenly deity laughed. Qin Wentian nodded. This caused that heavenly deity to start. After that he laughed. "So this is the case. Quickly summon him here. I will help him to break through. There should be many places in this ancient battlefield that are suitable for him to cultivate." Qin Wentian fell silent for a moment before he nodded. "Right?" As he spoke, he took out his messaging crystal and sent a strand of immortal sense in Yuhuang. "Have you received any news about the great changes in Azure Mystic?" After the news spread out, Qin Wentian glanced at the heavenly deity before him only to see that the heavenly deity was still smiling at him. "MHM. The various regions of the supreme ancient immortal realms are circulating this news. The world-ending battle between the supreme ancient immortal realms and Azure Mystic is being mentioned again. The Realm Lord is currently hesitating. Should he summon the World Palace Lords to the lower realms?" Princess Kitamura's voice rang out in Qin Wentian's mind. Qin Wentian could understand the lifelong Realm Lord's hesitation. Given the current situation, the overlord of a world realm was no longer a major character. The people sent here might become cannon fodder. This change has something to do with us. Someone hopes that you can make a trip here. Qin Wentian spoke. Princess Kitamura fell silent for a moment before she asked, "Does it have something to do with us?" "Yes. The entrance to the ancient battlefield is located in the forbidden ground of the Dark North Immortal Mountain. Back then, that madman in the forbidden ground actually has a connection with the imperishable Heaven Lord of ancient Azure Mystic. The power he imparted to us might very well be the work of the imperishable Heaven Lord. There are many zombies in this ancient battlefield and I met an ancient will here. He told me that if you come here, you will be able to control these zombies and they will fight for you." Qin Wentian spoke. He then continued, "However, you have to consider the details yourself." The other side fell silent again. A moment later, a voice rang out, "I will do my best." Good." Qin Wentian nodded and kept his messaging crystal. The Heaven Empyrean glanced at Qin Wentian and spoke again. "Since you are the Heaven Empyrean in Azure Mystic, you must have many loyal immortal emperor subordinates, right? Bring them here and do your best to raise their cultivation bases. In the future, they will follow you in your conquest." Chapter 1722. Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with sharpness when he heard the heavenly deity's words. Qin Wentian wanted him to gather the generals of Azure Mystic? His subordinates and good friends were all people of Azure Mystic. If their strength could transform, they would definitely be able to protect Azure Mystic in the future. Qin Wentian sent his immortal sense into his messaging crystal, telling everyone to gather at the royal palace of the former Hokage Sengoku Kingdom. As his command was given out, the peak experts of the various palaces in Heaven Empyrean City all moved out. Chongqing the Great, Qing the Southern Phoenix Matriarch, the Dark North Immortal Emperor, the Jadestitch Palace Mistress, the Battle Saint Tribe, the Myriad Devil Islands, all of them moved out together, directly using teleportation arrays to arrive at the Hokage Sengoku Kingdom. Right now, the 4 locations of Azure Mystic were all connected by teleportation arrays, and the Heaven Empyrean Palace was the hub. Now that Azure Mystic was unified, the Heaven Empyrean Palace naturally had to take on the role of connecting the entire Azure Mystic. With a single command, everyone would be able to gather at a location in the shortest amount of time. After Qin Wentian was conferred the title of Heaven Empyrean, this was the first time he gave an order. Everyone naturally didn't hesitate and immediately executed it. At the royal palace of the Hokage Sengoku Kingdom, more and more experts were rushing there, arriving in the shortest amount of time. After giving the command, Qin Wentian stared at the ancient heavenly deity and asked, "Senior, I've already given the command. Very soon, everyone will appear outside the forbidden ground. It's just that in order to prevent any accidents, I need to bring them in first. If not, even an Empyrean from the supreme ancient immortal realms would be able to control them." That's only natural. The ancient heavenly deity nodded. Then what about the experts from the supreme ancient immortal realms? Qin Wentian asked. Don't worry, this is ancient Azure Mystic. Although there are good fortune everywhere, how much can they obtain? This world is boundlessly vast. Even if there are good fortune, it wouldn't be so easy to obtain it. In addition, if they really encountered good fortune, I'm afraid an internal war would already erupt. The ancient heavenly deity calmly spoke. Qin Wentian nodded, he agreed. If there really was a heaven-defying good fortune, the divine depositories left behind by a heavenly deity were discovered. The experts from the heavenly deity race would surely start a war. Who would allow the other party to obtain the divine depositories? They all wanted to take it for themselves. I'll go out with you. I'll borrow your body for a bit. I'm going to carve a formation out. Qin Wentian nodded. A moment later, his will transformed into a beam of light that directly entered the center of Qin Wentian's brows. Within Qin Wentian's sea of consciousness, his will once again fused together with Qin Wentian's will. There was only one entrance to this forbidden ground. Qin Wentian himself had no way to exit, only to see Qin Wentian inscribing a formation beneath his feet. An incomparably resplendent light flashed as astral runic inscriptions illuminated the area, drawing upon the power of the dark constellations in the sky. In an instant, the 9 constellations surrounding the black sun shone with a resplendent light, enveloping the formation he was inscribing. The black constellations seemed to merge together as a beam of black light cascaded down from the sky, shining onto the formation. Qin Wentian stepped into it, and the formation was activated as his silhouette directly vanished from his original location. When Qin Wentian appeared again, he was at the entrance of ancient Azure Mystic. There were many experts gathered here, and when they saw Qin Wentian suddenly appearing, their eyes flashed with a strange light. We pay our respects to the Heaven Empyrean. Someone bowed, recognizing Qin Wentian. He was someone from Azure Mystic. There were also Empyreans whose eyes gleamed sharply as they asked, "Sir, where did you come from?" Qin Wentian suddenly appeared, transforming into a beam of light. It was extremely mystical, like he just came out from a forbidden ground. Qin Wentian calmly glanced at that person and didn't bother with him. His silhouette flashed as he directly soared through the air, vanishing from sight. A moment later, a look of contemplation appeared on the face of that person who asked. Not long after, Qin Wentian arrived at the royal palace of the Hokage Sengoku Kingdom. When he arrived, there were already many people here. Chongqing the Great, Qing and the others were all here, as well as Little Rascal, Purgatory, Junmengchen and the others. Senior brother, what happened exactly? Junmengchen curiously asked. Beside him, his senior brother and Bai Wuya were also here. Mengchen, there's a huge change in Azure Mystic. Something major happened. After everyone is here, I will inform everyone about this. Qin Wentian spoke. After he came out, the will of that ancient heavenly deity was already in a deep slumber. It didn't affect him at all, right? Junmengchen nodded, but he felt an itch in his heart. He was very curious. Before this, Qin Wentian ordered the people of Azure Mystic to pay attention to the movements of the immortal realms. Countless mysterious experts from the supreme ancient immortal realms, including ancient emperors, were gathering here from the immortal realms. However, these people didn't know much about this and had no idea what was going on. Now that Qin Wentian has gathered them, he must have already investigated everything clearly. GD, Emperor Yu and the others arrived one after another. The experts from the myriad Devil Islands also arrived. Bai Qing walked to the side of Qin Wentian and spoke in a low voice. Wentian Gij? Little Lash Qing, you are here too. Qin Wentian rubbed Bai Qing's head. I want to share some of Wentian Gij's worries. Bai Qing replied. Okay. Qin Wentian laughed. This lass was already an immortal emperor of an immortal realm, but he always felt that she was just a little girl. When all the experts gathered here, Qin Wentian walked to the front of everyone and spoke. Recently, Azure Mystic hasn't been peaceful. I'm sure everyone has heard of this. Before this, I told everyone to investigate the situation in Azure Mystic. Now everything is clear. Not long ago, I learned of some secrets about Azure Mystic. So it turns out that the Azure Mystic we live in is an ancient Azure Mystic. The Azure Mystic of the past was countless times vaster and stronger than this. Experts were as common as clouds, above ancient emperors were world overlords, and above world overlords were heavenly deities. The eyes of everyone gleamed with sharpness. World overlords, heavenly deities, they have never heard of this before. All of them were seriously listening. Ancient Azure Mystic already had the strength of heavenly deities, standing at the peak of Azure Mystic. However, some powers in the supreme ancient immortal realms wanted to seize Azure Mystic for themselves and plunder the divine depositories, wanting Azure Mystic to submit to them. However, they were rejected. Hence, the heavenly deities of the supreme ancient immortal realms descended from the heavens and initiated a world-ending battle. In that battle, Azure Mystic was razed to flat ground. The supreme character of ancient Azure Mystic, the imperishable Heaven Lord, killed the heavenly deities who came from the supreme ancient immortal realms. After the world collapsed, the imperishable Heaven Lord used a heaven-defying method to bury ancient Azure Mystic. The entrance was located in the forbidden ground of the Dark North Immortal Mountain. Now that it has reappeared, the experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms came here precisely because of this. Qin Wentian used an extremely short amount of words to briefly explain the situation. After everyone heard it, they all felt their hearts surging with emotions. Ancient Azure Mystic, divine depositories, heavenly deities, world-ending battle. All these things that seemed extremely distant to them actually happened right before their eyes. The world they lived in was actually not the true Azure Mystic immortal realms. In the forbidden ground, I encountered a heavenly deity from ancient Azure Mystic. He has already died, but his will still exists in this world. He hopes that I can inherit the imperishable Heaven Lord's dying will and protect the Azure Mystic immortal realms. If all the experts from the supreme ancient immortal realms gather here, this world would most probably cease to exist. We can only be enslaved by those lofty powers. Hence I agreed to his words. Everyone here are my close relatives, friends, or even seniors. Are all of you willing to follow me? Qin Wentian asked. Senior brother, I will naturally follow you. Jun Mingchen spoke. Qing Er and Chongqing the Great didn't say anything. There was basically no need for them to express their stance. Bai Qing stood beside Qin Wentian, not saying anything. Heaven Empyrean. Now that you are the overlord of Azure Mystic, we will naturally follow you. The king of the Shooting Sun Kingdom spoke. Among everyone here, his relationship with Qin Wentian was the weakest. When it was time for him to express his stance, he naturally had to do so. If you all choose this path, you might encounter life and death dangers. When facing the supreme existences of the supreme ancient immortal realms, even I might not have a way to stop them. Although I'm the Heaven Empyrean, I don't dare to treat all of you as my subordinates. I respect your choices and will definitely not force you. But if you all choose to follow me on this path, there's no need to talk about turning back. Qin Wentian seriously spoke. Everyone naturally believed in Qin Wentian's character. Since he said this, even if they chose to back out, Qin Wentian wouldn't say anything. Danger has always coexisted with opportunity. Many of them have cultivated for countless years and personally witnessed the growth of a junior like Qin Wentian. Right now, ancient Azure Mystic has appeared. To them, wasn't this an opportunity as well? They had to follow Qin Wentian all the way until the end. Everyone respectively expressed their willingness to follow Qin Wentian. They understood that from now onwards, they would be on the same side as Qin Wentian. They wouldn't dare to disobey or betray him. Alright. For the next period of time, everyone can rest in the Hokage Sengoku Kingdom. I still have to wait for someone. Qin Wentian spoke. On the way here, he had already received a message from Princess Kitamura. The lifelong Realm Lord ultimately couldn't endure it any longer, and sent 4 World Palace Lords to Azure Mystic. She was someone from Azure Mystic, and took the initiative to tell the lifelong Realm Lord that the Forbidden Grounds were unlocked. The lifelong Realm Lord agreed to let her go, and not long after, Princess Kitamura would return to Azure Mystic. Many people were curious. Who was the person Qin Wentian was waiting for? Everyone, there's no need to guess. Many of you should have heard of the person I'm waiting for. Dark North Immortal Emperor, you are all extremely familiar with her. She's your daughter, Princess Kitamura. Qin Wentian spoke. A dazzling light flashed in the eyes of the Dark North Immortal Emperor. Was Yu Huang about to return? Seems like the relationship between Qin Wentian and his daughter, Princess Kitamura, might be even better than he had imagined. He felt some joy in his heart. Princess Kitamura called out. The Dark North Heavenly Emperor nodded with a smile. Now, your cultivation base is the same as mine. Haha. Like father, like daughter. Baiming Nongyua walked up and smiled. Elder sis, seems like you are doing very well in the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms. Princess Kitamura smiled. She didn't say anything. Was she doing well in the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms? There were simply too many experts in the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms. An immortal emperor was like a speck of sand in the Ganges River, simply too insignificant. This was especially so during the period when they first entered the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms. How tough was it? Just a city lord of a small city almost caused them to be consigned to eternal damnation. Luckily, Qin Wentian's growth was extremely fast. Right now, he could be considered to have stabilized his footing in the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms, becoming a marquis of an area and managing a palace. I haven't congratulated you yet, junior brother. Princess Kitamura smiled and called out. She didn't refer to Qin Wentian as junior brother, because she had the 4 palace lords behind her. Also, in the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms, she had always been Qin Wentian's senior apprentice sister. Everyone knew this, even the lifelong Realm Lord also felt this way. If the lifelong Realm Lord found out that they weren't fellow apprentice siblings, what would he think? Before this, Qin Wentian had already told everyone that he didn't want the Realm Lord to know about this. However, his considerations were different from Baiming Youhuang's. Right now, the lifelong Realm Lord misunderstood that they were all disciples of ancient Emperor Yi. This identity had its pros and cons as well. If they were to expose it now, things would be troublesome instead. It's truly regretful that you didn't come personally. Qin Wentian naturally understood that the lifelong Realm Lord was referring to the wedding. Haha, it's truly regretful. Baiming Yuhuang, the day of the Heaven Empyrean's wedding can be said to be extremely grand. The entire world will send their congratulations. The Dark North Immortal Emperor laughed. Princess Kitamura's eyes flashed as she stared at Qin Wentian. She then asked in a low voice, Heaven Empyrean? Elder sister, don't you know? Right now, that fellow is already the overlord of Azure Mystic. He has the title of Heaven Empyrean, and is worshipped by everyone in the world. Baiming Nongyua laughed. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled and shook his head. Heaven Empyrean sounded very tyrannical, but in the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms, this title didn't count for much. Only the imperishable Heaven Lord could truly dominate the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms. Strength was everything. Alright, Lifefire Empyrean, tell us about the situation here. The Sky Air Empyrean walked over and asked. They came here for the ancient battlefield. They weren't here to listen to Qin Wentian and the others chat. He didn't refer to Qin Wentian as Palace Lord Qin and directly referred to him as the Lifefire Empyrean. Naturally, there was a sense of distance between them. Back then at the Lifelong Banquet, they had once seen Qin Wentian's performance when he was an immortal emperor. At that time, he represented the Lifefire Palace and defeated the immortal emperors of the 9 world palaces. Right now, the immortal emperor of the past was already on the same level as them. There's nothing much. The entrance to the ancient battlefield has already opened and I have no idea about the situation inside. I will lead all of you in later. Qin Wentian spoke. Let's go then. The Sky Air Empyrean spoke again. Qin Wentian glanced at him. He could naturally sense the arrogance of this personal disciple of the lifelong Realm Lord. He smiled and nodded, right? Since this is the case, let's move out then. Let's go. He glanced at Princess Kitamura. She nodded her head and after that, the group of them once again moved towards the forbidden ground. When they arrived at the entrance of the ancient battlefield, there were still people entering unceasingly. Qin Wentian and the others didn't hesitate and entered. They once again arrived at the ancient battlefield. The black sun in the sky exuded an intense pressure. The eyes of the palace lords gleamed with sharpness as they stared at the sun and the 9 gigantic constellations in the sky. They were speechless for a long time. With regards to the rumors about ancient Azure Mystic, their hearts were filled with reverence. And now they had arrived at the ancient land, the ancient battlefield of destruction. Do you really know nothing about this place? The Sky Air Empyrean stared at Qin Wentian. His eyes were as sharp as ever, as though he wanted to see through Qin Wentian's words clearly. I only know that there are already many experts here, including many from the heavenly deity race. Qin Wentian replied, coldly laughing in his heart. Most probably, the Sky Air Empyrean still didn't know that his trip here was fraught with grim possibilities. Leaving aside how dangerous this place was, just the exit alone would be extremely difficult to find. No one in the supreme ancient immortal realms would be able to inscribe a teleportation formation like that ancient heavenly deity, unless they found another exit. Even existences from the heavenly deity race were surrounded by danger, let alone these 4 palace lords. Although he didn't rejoice in their misfortune, he wouldn't sympathize with them either. All of these were his own choices. Back then when he followed the other experts here, he also knew nothing about this place. Danger lurked everywhere. If the heavenly deity from the winged god race was the one who won that battle, he would already be a dead man. Palace Lord Qin, since everyone knows nothing, let's form a group and explore this forbidden ground together. The Xianyuan Palace Lord spoke. He didn't mind being closer to Qin Wentian. His juniors were on good terms with the vice-governor of the Lifire Palace, Di Tian. Also, regardless of Qin Wentian or Di Tian, both of them were people with great potential. It wouldn't be a problem for him to be closer to them. It's fine, I wish to explore this forbidden ground alone. Everyone, please do as you wish. Qin Wentian felt that it would be too inconvenient if he were to travel together with these people. The eyes of the Xianyuan Palace Lord flashed. After that, he smiled and nodded, sure. Since the Lifire Empyrean wishes to travel alone, let's go with him then. The Sky Air Empyrean spoke. He had received the order from his master to adopt a laissez-faire attitude towards Qin Wentian. But no matter what, he also knew from his master that Qin Wentian was Yi's disciple. Yuang, let's go. The Sky Air Empyrean glanced at Princess Kitamura who didn't move. Princess Kitamura's beautiful eyes flashed. She spoke in a light voice. I will naturally follow my father. She naturally wouldn't say that she would follow Qin Wentian. It was only natural for her to follow her father. Very simple. Just let your father follow us. The Sky Air Empyrean spoke. This caused Qin Wentian to frown. Why did he feel that the Sky Air Empyrean had no intention of letting Yu Huang go? The Dark North Immortal Emperor is someone of my Azure Mystic. He will naturally follow me. Since my senior sister wants to follow my father, it's the same if she follows me. At this moment Qin Wentian spoke. There was no problem with his words because he didn't know what Yu Huang had promised the lifelong Realm Lord. However, the Sky Air Empyrean naturally knew. Also, before he descended to the lower world, he had already received instructions from his master. The woman his master had already decided on would be announced during the next grand banquet. How could she follow Qin Wentian? Even if they were fellow apprentice sisters, they should at least have some reservations. It wasn't good to be too close. No way. The Sky Air Empyrean decisively rejected. This is my master's intention. I will protect Princess Kitamura. I won't feel at ease leaving her to you. Qin Wentian's frown grew deeper. He stared at the Skyr Empyrean. My senior sister will follow me and her father. What are you worried about? You want to defy orders? The Skyr Empyrean couldn't be bothered to continue speaking nonsense after seeing Qin Wentian rebutting him so many times. His eyes gleamed with sharpness as a faint pressure gushed forth, enveloping Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian merely killed the Lifire Empyrean, and he even joined forces with Di Tian. Yet, he actually dared to speak to him in such a manner? Seems like that battle earlier had caused his confidence to inflate. Qin Wentian's expression turned cold when he saw the Skyr Empyrean using the lifelong Realm Lord's words. He calmly spoke, Realm Lord, why are you worried about me? I can personally seek guidance from you. His words were clearly a challenge to the Skyr Empyrean. Although he didn't say that he was defying orders, he wouldn't compromise either. For a period of time the atmosphere was extremely tense. The Xinyuan Palace Lord and the other two Palace Lords were all stunned when they saw this. They just entered the ancient battlefield and a civil war was already about to erupt? They didn't understand. Why were the Skyr Empyrean and this new Lifire Empyrean so resolute in their attitude? You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.